What's going on, partners? Today we're going to be talking about the California model, a prison reform initiative that was implemented in 2023 by Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, I should be able to end the video now because as soon as I said it was implemented by Gavin Newsom, you should already know that this model is not going to work. It's going to be an absolute disaster. And it has been an absolute disaster since its inception. But this model is replacing our previous rehabilitation model that was implemented in 2005 by Governor Schwarzenegger. In 2005, the Department of Corrections changed its name to Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, adding the R to focus on rehabilitating the inmates in custody. Now, this was a result of prison overcrowdingness and recidivism. Inmates kept coming back into prison, and it was just a revolving door, and they set their focus on the recidivism, thinking that if they are able to reduce the likelihood of inmates returning into prison, that would help with the prison population. So Assembly Bill 900 was passed to reduce the prison overcrowdingness and increase rehabilitation programs. In the years to follow, rehabilitation programs started being implemented in the prison system. And then in 2011, the hunger strikes began in Pelican Bay that brought attention to the isolation of inmates in Pelican Bay. Now, if you recall, we've already discussed the hunger strike in a previous video titled The Untold History of Proposition 47. Now, interestingly enough, we can go back into history and identify most of the problems beginning around 2012. Listen to this.
And starting in 2012, there was a peaceful protest, a hunger strike, and a peaceful protest by prison gang leaders who had been in the security housing unit at Pelican Bay. And they advocated to end racial hostilities and to end solitary confinement. So that was very impactful, and following that, there was a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against the Corrections Department. And around 2015, they started phasing out indefinite solitary confinement. And so all the gang members, gang leaders that they had in security units at what they call the SHU at Pelican Bay and this other prison, they let them out into the general population in prisons across the state. And this kind of integration of the yards, this mixing of this element, gang leaders, people in positions of power, some of our sources, both inmates and correction officers, they point to that as a turning point when things became more violent, when there was like a new level of violence introduced, where, for example, previously, most of the violence concerned slashings, face slashings with razors. Now it was stabbings and strangulation, more lethal, more dangerous.
All right, so let's recap. How does that make sense? In 2005, you implemented a program that is focused on rehabilitation. In 2011, the inmates have a hunger strike. The inmates draft an agreement to end hostilities in 2012, yet the prison system gets more violent. If these changes were meant to make our prison system better, how did we manage to make it worse? Can someone please explain where we went wrong? And now we're trying to reform our prison system again using a holistic initiative that draws on international best practices called the California model, which is a ripoff of the Norway prison model.
Violence plagues our country's system of incarceration. When people get out, they have extreme difficulties finding a job. And while the data varies state by state, about half end up back in custody within a few years. All of that is why officials say the Golden State is trying to move in a new direction, starting a pilot program at 2 facilities with the goal to replicate the results in Scandinavia, where Norway says reforms over the last 2.5 decades have brought down the rate of reoffending within 2 years to only 20%, much lower than here in the U.S. They've also decreased the prison population significantly and have helped people reincorporate into society after they serve their time.
You have a key to your own cell.
Yeah, everybody has their own key.
Authorities here say the most important thing they're trying to change at Valley State Prison is how it feels.
This is the central courtyard.
Yeah.
I feel very peaceful just looking at it.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Am I recorded?
You're on, man.
Officials told us the only way to truly understand the reforms is by coming and experiencing them.
One of the principles of the California model is normalization, and the idea is we want to make the environment inside our institutions as normal as possible, with the goal of not releasing somebody who's institutionalized, but releasing citizens back to the community who have practiced normal pro-social behavior.
What about the argument that somebody might see this and say, well, isn't part of the goal punishment in some way? Why give them all of this nice stuff?
So I would say that people go to court to be punished. That's up to our judges and our juries. And when they come into our institutions, our goal is to basically help them become better citizens. So with that in mind, we are not in the punishment business. We're in the rehabilitative business.
Okay, so what they're doing is they're taking things that worked in Norway and bringing them over to California. However, they're not taking into consideration the problems that California has. And it almost feels like a cookie cutter method. However, California has a unique set of problems. We're the gang capital of the world. We have an addiction problem and a mental health problem. Norway doesn't have any of those things. It's a cookie cutter method that they're trying to implement into a very unique problem here in California, and it's not going to work. And it hasn't been working. Listen to this.
As we were looking into this, we also noticed that there were 6 homicides in the first 6 weeks of 2024 in California prisons. So one of these was a use of force because it was allegedly to stop an inmate who was trying to stab another inmate to death, but 6 killings in 6 weeks, which is not good, which is alarming. And we looked into the data further, and what we found is that the incident reports, so there are all different kinds of incidents that the prisons are obligated to report. They're pretty good about doing that on a regular basis. Right now on their website, they have data going through October 2023, so you can kind of get a sense of, have these incidents increased, have they decreased? And what we noticed when we looked at the data from 2021 until 2023, October 2023, is that on average, overall incidents have gone up by more than 40%. And when you look at specifically the types of incidents, very important categories such as assaults and batteries on correctional officers and other non-inmates, assaults and batteries on inmates, use of force and sexual assault, all of these have gone up more than 40% on average 2021 to 2023. And you have to keep in mind that during this period,
2021 to 2023,
the population of the prison system has been decreasing. So you would expect that incident reports would be less.
even
right?
with
You
a
wouldn't
decreased
expect to
amount of
see such
population.
an incredible increase. And one that was particularly shocking was just from 2022 to 2023, it was more than a 60% increase in sexual assaults that were reported.
All right, let's stop it right there. As she mentioned, there were 6 murders in the first 6 weeks of 2024. We ended 2024 with over 53 murders throughout their prison system. 53 murders, making it the bloodiest year of CDCR's history. And the state refuses to admit that the implementations of these programs are not working. Where are the benefits of the California model? There aren't any. This is Jeff McCumber, the secretary, the head of CDCR, speaking on the California model.
Just because we're adopting the California model does not mean we're ignoring Corrections 101. And if someone went up to me and said, hey, if I can lower the stress level of my staff, have less staff out on workers' comp, long-term sick, make people want to come to work today, why wouldn't I try that? And that's why we're here. I'd rather try and fail than not to have tried at all at this.
You've already failed, sir. You've already failed. We are telling you that it's not working, and you're not listening. The truth is that you don't want to listen, so much so that the comments have been turned off in their YouTube page. You can't even go on here and comment your opinion. The data that is on your own website reflects the opposite, and you're simply not listening. And I'm not the only one saying this. There are many people saying that the California model is not going to work.
When we start to look at what other countries are doing, what other countries have done, and we just say, "Hey, yeah, look at the success they're having," I think we have to back off from that. I don't think that we can just automatically assume that they're having success. So, a lot of these, those countries over in that section of the world, aren't necessarily as upfront as they should be as about exactly what's going on. Some of their more hardcore type prisoners, inmates, criminals are being farmed out to other countries because they can't deal with them. And so I think that, and the whole idea, there isn't the level of free speech that we have here with regards to journalists, or the way journalists used to act, where they used to dig into things. And so I don't think that you can just say, hey, they have something that works, and then here, we're just assuming that it's going to work across the board. We have unique issues here. We have a unique population, and we have a bigger population that has a lot more issues like drug abuse and mental disease and gangs and things like that. And you just can't plug it in and say it's going to work. I think that's just, a really bad idea to think that. I know that if I were to take, my level 1 and 2 inmates and plug them in over there, that they would break that system in 2 weeks. I think that if I took my level 3 and 4s from the California system and plugged them in over there, that they'd break the system in about a day and a half.
I completely agree with him. Inmates in California are some of the most sophisticated criminals in the world. These guys are making moves internationally. They have strategically used our court system to dismantle our prison system. These guys are not dummies. And if you would take them over there, they would have a field day with their justice system. They would turn it upside down. And I agree, it'd probably take a day. They wouldn't even know what hit them. Just how we don't even know what hit us. How are we doing so bad? How are we getting reform so terribly bad in a profession that has been around for thousands of years?
That is my own assessment. That assessment is born of, someone who's, been in the system for more than 30 years now, though.
So when you see these reports, don't get fooled. These programs are not working. We have to expose the truth on what's happening behind these prison walls because media is not helping us out. The media is not willing to report on it. Government and government officials, even sheriffs, and you saw him here, Jeff McCumber, the secretary of CDCR, won't even admit that these systems don't work. They just keep changing them after failure and failure of each system. For now, partners, I am telling you, the California model is not going to work. I hope I was able to shine a light on the lies they are telling us. For now, partners, that's all I got. Remember to hold the line and let's hold them accountable.